For years, the Constellation Taurus was one of the easiest freight ships to recommend, but newer ships carry more, load easily, and cost less. So has the Taurus been replaced? The RSI Constellation Taurus. RSI sells it as a freighter that can do a little of everything. 174 SCU, a tractor beam turret, room for a ground vehicle, a compartment for sensitive cargo, and 4 size 5 guns under the pilot's control. It sounds like a safe choice, but today it isn't the cheapest, it doesn't haul the most, and it's not up to the standards of the newer ships. So what does the Taurus actually do better? If the answer is nothing, why do people keep recommending it? Is the Taurus still genuinely useful, or is its reputation doing all the work? Hi, I'm Dusty Star. Today we're taking a close, honest look at the RSI Constellation Taurus. And right now, I'm not sure about this ship. I've done factory service manuals for the Raft, Zeus CL, Hermes, and the Starlancer Max. Every one of them gave me reasons to question whether the Taurus still makes sense. Now it's the Taurus's turn. We'll inspect the design, take her hauling, and see what happens when the work gets dangerous. We'll find out if the Constellation Taurus deserves a spot in my hangar or if her time is finally past. The Taurus design didn't come from a line of freighters. RSI started with the multi-purpose Constellation platform, lengthened the hull, and reworked the rear cargo. But the crew spaces, engineering layout, and heavy weapons remained. The Taurus has more ways aboard than most ships I've tested. First is the main elevator. It opens into an airlock. In fact, it's the only exterior entrance that doesn't vent the ship. It also keeps crew access separate from the cargo operation. So even with a full load, we should still be able to come and go without disturbing anything. Then there's the main cargo lift. No narrow cargo door here. I'm looking at you, Hermes and Zeus. Access from the front and back, and the entire grid comes down to the ground. That should make loading simple. But can that tractor beam turret reach the whole grid, and does the lift make unloading any faster? Then there are 3 docking ports, one above and one on either side. They give the crew several ways aboard in space, but they also give pirates 3 more ways into the ship. Useful access? Sure, but that's more entrances to protect. From the outside, the Taurus' narrow profile and small footprint make her look smaller than she is, but inside she's much bigger than she looks. Fortunately, the engineers at RSI labeled every section to help us find our way, so there's almost no chance of getting lost inside this massive hull. Section A brings nearly every workstation together. 3 seats across the flight deck with the pilot in the center. The engineering panel sits just behind them. And the manned weapon turret and tractor beam turret are both accessed from here. So the crew can fly the ship, monitor its systems, defend it, and support the cargo operation without leaving Section A. Section B is where the crew is expected to live, and the dining table might be the most comfortable looking furniture in the room. At least everyone can sit together and decide whose turn it is to fly. Across from where you eat, there's a bathroom. A little privacy, please. The lockers and weapon racks give everyone somewhere to keep their equipment, but there are no suit lockers. Which brings us to the sleeping arrangements. 4 bare bunks, no sheets, no blankets, and the pillow is built directly into the bed. Even Drake gives you a mattress, sheets, a blanket, and a real pillow. Hold on a minute, we may need a moment before continuing. We've now reached Section C. This is the main cargo area. The grid on the cargo elevator carries 168 SCU, accounting for nearly all the Taurus's freight capacity. A raised catwalk runs around the outside, allowing the crew to move through the ship while the elevator is lowered. And there are 4 controls for the cargo elevator, 1 above each ladder and 1 at either end inside the cargo bay. To appreciate the scale of Section C, we're going to cross the entire cargo deck. A journey of this magnitude should not be taken lightly. We're making good time. Fortunately, the signs confirm that we are still in Section C. And here we find the second ladder, with the controls above. The size of this cargo bay is honestly impressive, but how practical will this be once the real work begins? Section D is engineering, or at least this is where engineering will eventually happen. The Taurus hasn't received its physicalized component update yet. The display doesn't do anything. For now, all we can actually use are a couple of fuses and a fire extinguisher. At last, we've reached Section E, the secure cargo area. This small compartment holds the Taurus's final 6 SCU. RSI designed it to shield sensitive freight from other ships' scanners. That protection isn't functional today, but are these 6 SCU really worth the effort? Let's see where RSI spent the money and where it didn't. Is this a dependable factory loadout, or is there a weakness waiting to show itself? Nearly every ship's system is industrial grade C. These are basic, inexpensive components. RSI wasn't spending extra here. Each card turns raw component stats into simple trade-offs. More pips means more of that behavior. Components are only compared with other components of the same type and class, so it's always apples to apples. There's no single best component. The right choice depends on how you use the ship. For these tests, the Taurus will remain in its factory configuration. The downloadable factory service manual includes 3 alternative builds based on how you fly. I'm also preparing a separate upgrade guide that'll walk channel members through all 3. And if you'd like to get your own printed set of component trading cards, I'll show you how at the end of the video. Now let's see what those budget choices mean for the Taurus. The Taurus carries 2 Diligence power plants. Each provide average power generation with average durability. Both produce a very strong electromagnetic signature, so RSI clearly wasn't trying to keep this ship quiet. The second power plant provides redundancy if one is lost. That durability matters more than I expected. Later in the combat test, both power plants get knocked offline. Will the Taurus survive long enough to bring them back? Those power plants feed a single size 3 stronghold shield generator. The size sounds reassuring, but these stats don't. Compared with other size 3 shields, the stronghold has one of the smallest shield pools and some of the slowest regeneration. It also produces a strong electromagnetic signature, and it isn't especially durable. So the Taurus has a large shield by size, but a weak one within its class. And because there's only one, everything depends on it. The Taurus carries 2 cool core coolers, each offering average cooling and average durability. There's nothing exceptional here, just 2 serviceable coolers sharing the work. For quantum travel, RSI chose the Bolon. This drive prioritizes speed. It moves quickly but sacrifices range and takes a long time to cool down. Speed should help a working freighter stay on schedule, but poor range and a long cooldown can give that time right back. The Taurus uses a size 2 surveyor radar. Its aim assist distance is below average, with very little outside range buffer, but it requires relatively little power. And it's one of the more durable size 2 radars. That leaves the pilot with 4 size 5 guns, but below average help keeping ships in the pips. We'll find out whether firepower alone can make up the difference. Components won't decide whether the Taurus still deserves a spot in my hangar. The work will. Can this old cargo ship still keep pace with the ships that came after it? For this test, I accepted 2 contracts running the same route. Everything starts at New Babbage and ends at Port Tressler. Together, the contracts total 111 SCU, agriculture supplies, waste, and scrap, in containers as large as 8 SCU. We'll use that main grid for the larger containers and put a few smaller boxes in the secured compartment. Normally, I back a cargo ship up to the freight elevator, but the Taurus's tractor beam sits beneath the cockpit, so this time, I'm trying nose first. That should give the turret a clear path from the freight elevator through the front of the cargo bay. At least that's the theory. We'll find out once the boxes start moving. We have size 1, 2, 4, and 8 SCU containers, enough variety to expose any problems with the grid. I'm starting with the 8s and placing the heaviest boxes at the back. This is where the open front of the cargo bay starts to matter. The turret has a clear path to the freight elevator and enough reach to carry an 8 SCU container to the far end of the grid. More importantly, the box is easy to control and align. That's better than I expected. Once the first box is locked down, the work settles into a rhythm. No narrow doorway, no awkward handoff, just a direct path from the freight elevator to the cargo grid. The 8s create a base, and the 4s stack cleanly above them. For an older design, this part of the Taurus is remarkably well thought out. I saved the final 1 and 2 SCU containers for the secure cargo area, but that creates a problem. The tractor beam turret is beneath the cockpit, and the secure compartment is all the way in the back in Section E. There's no direct way to load it from here, so the best option is to stage both containers at the rear end of the main grid, raise the cargo elevator, then move them the rest of the way from the inside. From here, each box has to pass through 2 sets of doors before reaching the secure compartment. It works, but it isn't an efficient way to move cargo. And with the scan shielding unavailable today, there's very little reason to use this. But if RSI delivers the protection it intended, hiding sensitive cargo from another ship's scanners could make the extra work worthwhile. That's a feature I'm looking forward to. On a short run to Port Tresler, the Bolon's limited range doesn't matter. What I notice is the speed. For local hauling, the factory drive makes sense. A longer route may tell a different story. At Port Tresler, I'm using the same nose first position. And unloading confirms that the first half of this test wasn't a fluke. Every container comes off cleanly. The turret remains easy to control, and the open cargo bay provides a direct path back to the freight elevator. The only interruption is the secure compartment. Those final 2 boxes still have to come out one at a time, pass through both doors, and ride the main elevator down. That extra handling is the price of using Section E. 2 contracts, 111 SCU, 1 trip. And not one container had to be fought through a narrow doorway. The Taurus may not carry the most, but it makes the cargo remarkably easy to move. Cargo work in this ship is a pleasure. After the hauling test, I started to think I had judged the Taurus too quickly. Maybe this old ship hadn't been replaced after all. And with 4 size 5 laser repeaters, I had every reason to believe combat would go just as well. Then the shooting started, and every doubt I had about this ship came rushing back. Was hauling the only job the Taurus could still do? For the combat test, I accepted Gilly's Combat Gauntlet Scenario 5. This isn't a simple target shoot. The Taurus will face multiple missile-armed attackers using its stock factory loadout. Can those 4 size 5 guns end the fight before the rest of the ship starts giving way? The first target is a Freelancer Miss, a well-armored missile boat. The Taurus tracks it better than I expected. I can keep the weapons on target through each turn. But the gun never feels decisive. Pass after pass, the Miss keeps absorbing fire. It takes nearly 3 minutes to bring down the first ship. The Taurus wins the exchange, but it takes far too long, and this fight is only the beginning. By this point, the fight has changed. I'm facing a Vanguard, a Saber Raven, and another Freelancer Miss. I stay focused on the Vanguard for nearly 2 minutes. I do everything I can to finish one target. But while I'm working on him, the Firebird keeps making passes, and some of that ballistic fire is getting through my shields. Now I'm not just thinking about the fight, I'm thinking about those stock grade C systems keeping the Taurus alive. I can't afford to ignore the Firebird any longer, so I switch targets and go after him, but the Taurus can't keep him inside the firing solution. He's too fast, too maneuverable, and gone before I can do meaningful damage. Then the Freelancer moves into range. Finally, a target I can hit, so I open fire. But I'm still thinking about that last Freelancer. Nearly 3 minutes to bring down one ship. With the Vanguard and the Firebird still attacking, I don't have another 3 minutes. On the next pass against the Freelancer, the Firebird appears directly ahead. I switch targets again. This time I land enough fire to leave his hull flashing red. He starts opening the distance, and I try to follow, but the Vanguard is still circling, hitting me every chance he gets. Then another pass comes straight at me. Gatling fire, missile locks. The missile hits, and suddenly the Taurus won't move. I start rebooting everything I can, trying to understand what just failed. Then I see the warning, power plant offline. Both Diligence power plants are gone, and that average durability suddenly matters far more than I expected. On the engineering display, I see an option to repair all, so I select it. The timer reads 1 minute and 10 seconds. Normally, 1 minute isn't very long. Sitting motionless while 3 ships are firing at you, it feels like forever. I can't maneuver, I can't fight back. All I can do is wait and hope the Taurus survives the timer. With 45 seconds remaining, I try the shield, but without power, nothing responds. The ship keeps coming apart. One of the engine nacelles tears away. At this point, I'm no longer trying to win, I'm trying to survive. The power plants finally come back online, but now the coolers have failed. The Taurus is barely functioning, but it gives me one final option. I bring the quantum drive online. With only the retro thrusters remaining, I try to point the ship towards the jump marker. The drive begins to spool, slowly, and somehow the Taurus holds together long enough to jump. The factory Taurus didn't finish the fight, but it survived far longer than I expected. Even after losing power, it's cooling, and part of the ship, it gave me enough time to recover and escape. That matters. But those 3 ships are still back there, and I ain't done with that fight just yet. The stock Galderines had their chance. They simply took too long to finish a target, so this time I'm mounting M7A laser cannons up top and Deadbolt 5 ballistic cannons underneath. The M7As will work through the shields, and the Deadbolts should make every opening count. Time to show these boys what this ship is really made of. All 3 ships are still here. As they break formation, I target the Freelancer Miss. The first one took nearly 3 minutes to destroy, so this should give us a clear comparison. The first pass is long and slow, but these cannons feel different immediately. The repeaters needed sustained fire. Now every hit produces visible damage. He flies over the top, and then we both begin turning for another pass. This time, the cannons tear off a wing. One more pass, a few more clean hits, and the Freelancer is gone. 1 down, 2 to go. I switch to the Vanguard. He's coming directly at me, and neither of us is backing away. We exchange fire as he passes. His shields are already beginning to give. Then we do it again, and again. 4 more passes, trading fire every time. But this time, my shields hold, and the cannons finish the job. 2 down, 1 to go. That leaves the Firebird. He's still carrying damage from the first fight, but the hardest part hasn't changed. It takes nearly a minute to create the firing solution. But when he finally moves into range, one clean shot is enough. Mission complete. Well, apparently this old gal holds a grudge, and the same Taurus that barely escaped came back and finished all three. Now I wanted to know how far that flexibility could go. So I cleared the cargo grid and loaded the Taurus for a completely different job. Some jobs don't end when you land. That's where they begin. And for the next one, I brought everything I might need to stay out until the work was finished. A bunker job can go bad fast. So I brought more than a way to get there. I brought a way to keep going. When the job went wrong, the answer was waiting outside. No trip back to the station, no second ship. Everything I needed was already with me. Then I could finish the job and bring something home. When the bunker was behind me, I didn't even have to go home. There was still daylight left, so I stopped because I could. For the first time all day, there was nowhere else I needed to be. The next job asked for a different tool, so I changed the load, not the ship. And that freedom was starting to feel like the point. That's when the Taurus finally made sense to me. The cargo bay works like the bed of a truck. What you carry depends on the work ahead. Freight, a medical rover and supplies, mining equipment. One owner can accept all three jobs without returning to the hangar for a different ship. That's what I missed when I judged it only as a freighter. So, has the Taurus been replaced? For some jobs, yes. Some newer ships carry more cargo for the money, but 174 SCU only tells me how much cargo the Taurus can hold. It doesn't tell me how many kinds of work I can do with it. It's easy to find another ship that carries cargo. It's much harder to find one that gives me this much freedom. Some ships make sense when you know exactly what the next job will be. The Taurus makes sense when you don't. I started this test ready to replace her. By the end, I wasn't looking for another ship. I was looking for the next job. And that's why the Constellation Taurus has earned a spot in my hangar. This old gal stays.